war, disease, starving children, corruption, foreign aid, underdevelopment. These are some of the most common themes you will notice in African news reported by international media outlets, whether through TV, radio, print media, or digital platforms. International media outlets have always been accused of cherry-picking the worst stories about Africa to show the world because that is what sells. These news stories cause irreparable damage to the continent's reputation, but now, new information has come to light quantifying just how much such news impacts Africa beyond mere reputation damage. Research conducted by Africa Practice and the advocacy group Africa No Filter has revealed that Africa loses up to £3.2 billion yearly due to the damaging influence of these negative stereotypes in international media. The impact of these stereotypes, which paint a bleak picture of the continent, translates directly into higher borrowing costs and inflated interest rates on sovereign debt, costing African nations dearly. The research highlights a troubling reality. The stories that dominate global media coverage about Africa, especially during election seasons, are filled with narratives of conflict, corruption, poverty, disease, and poor leadership. These portrayals distort perceptions of the continent's stability and economic potential, creating a gap between the perceived and actual risks of investing in Africa. The result: investors shy away or demand a premium to lend, which African countries can barely afford. We've always known that there's a cost to the persistent stereotypical media narratives about Africa. Now we're able to put an actual figure to it, said Moki Makura, Executive Director of Africa No Filter. The scale of these figures underscores the urgent need to challenge these negative stereotypes about Africa and promote a more balanced narrative. Despite some progress in how Africa is represented, thanks to greater African involvement in global affairs, a more visible international media presence on the continent, and growing advocacy against these stereotypes, the coverage remains stubbornly biased. Election reporting is a prime example. While media outlets in other parts of the world focus on policy debates and social issues, African elections are often portrayed through the lens of violence, chaos, and corruption. Indeed, the research examined the global media's coverage of elections in Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt, and compared it with non-African countries with similar political and economic situations, such as Malaysia, Denmark, and Thailand. The findings revealed a stark contrast in how newsrooms depict African nations. In Africa, the focus tends to be on dramatic narratives of conflict or corruption rather than substantive issues like healthcare reform or economic policies. This bias skews the perception of Africa, magnifying the perceived risks of doing business on the continent. Typically, election coverage is narrowly focused on the horse race between the incumbent and main opposition party or parties. In Africa, it is often peppered with stories of election violence and rumors of corruption, said Makura. The fixation on election drama, rather than the issues at stake, is sometimes driven by the desire for headline-grabbing stories. It's easier to sell stories about tainted politicians and violent clashes than it is to dig into healthcare reform or job creation policies, he added. This skewed narrative has real-world financial consequences. Misleading media portrayals inflate perceptions of risk, leading lenders to impose unnecessarily high borrowing costs on African nations, even those with reasonable credit ratings. This prejudice premium, as some experts call it, ultimately obscures the genuine economic opportunities available on the continent. Mr. Marcus Courage, the CEO of Africa Practice, underscored the scale of this loss, pointing out that the £3.2 billion figure is only the tip of the iceberg. It accounts solely for the increased cost of borrowing on sovereign debt. If we were to factor in other areas like tourism, foreign direct investment, and aid, the actual cost would likely be much higher. The real commercial opportunity is obscured from international investors because of this risk premium, he said. Just imagine what Africa could achieve with that £3.2 billion each year. It could be used to educate over 12 million children, provide clean drinking water to millions, or deliver life-saving immunizations to 73 million people. Instead, This money is lost to inflated interest rates, draining resources that could be used to tackle the continent's most pressing challenges, including climate change, poverty, and healthcare. The time has come for the international media to recognize the immense damage these stereotypes cause, not just to Africa's image, but to its economic prospects. Africa is not a monolithic entity defined by crisis and corruption. It is a diverse continent with immense potential and opportunity. Journalists must take responsibility for their role in shaping global perceptions and commit to providing a fuller, more balanced view of Africa. It's time for the media to move beyond sensationalism and commit to fair, nuanced reporting that does justice to Africa's complexity. By highlighting success stories, economic developments, and the resilience of its people, the media can help unlock the continent's true potential. Only by doing so can we close the gap between perception and reality, paving the way for a brighter and more prosperous future for Africa. Do you think the international media will ever correct their biased and stereotypical coverage of Africa? Share your thoughts and insights in the comments section below. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our informative future videos. Stay informed, stay engaged, and thank you for watching.